Cool. So a lot of Hackcon in the beginning is about having experts come and talk to you about things you can learn for your hackathons and how you can make your local communities better. Another big part of Hackcon is actually having people from our community share their amazing stories about the things they're doing. So I'm really excited to introduce you to these three gentlemen who are doing some awesome stuff down in Florida, and I hope you're excited to hear it as I am. Cool. Give them a round of applause.
All right, cool. What's up, everyone? My name is Bernie. I'm a recent graduate from the University of Florida. I founded SwampHacks. What do you call a nosy pepper? Jalapeno business.
Hello, my name is Takashi Wickes. I'm a rising junior at the University of Florida. I'm the current organizer of SwampHacks, and you can say I'm the windmill of hackathons, because I'm quite a big fan.
Hey fam, I am Matt O'Hagan. I will be a senior this fall at Florida State, and I've helped throw the last 3 HackFSU events at Florida State. And so we started a little something called Florida Hackers. And Florida Hackers is a statewide regional community for all of the student hackers in Florida.
So basically what we're going to talk about today is sort of the issues that inspired Florida Hackers. We'll run through a brief origin story, sort of the things that we saw from building this community and how you can bring it to your own regions.
So starting off with the issues. So what is a hackathon weekend like? Hackathon, for you organizers, hackathon, go to sleep, start playing the next hackathon. That's about it. What else happens? Not much. What we saw was the problem was that we weren't really building these communities that we could have. We were limiting ourselves to single hackathons. We were limiting ourselves to single universities, and that was really causing this artificial cap that we were making for ourselves. So we saw younger hackathons weren't getting as much recognition. I would be so pissed off when I would sign up for something, University of Florida wouldn't be auto-completed. And so younger universities wouldn't get these recognitions. Also, newer universities wouldn't know how to get into the hackathon scene. That barrier of entry was so high because they didn't have those resources. And finally, inside of a state or in between universities, competition ranked over collaboration. So those are the issues that we saw, and those are the issues that we had hoped to fix.
So our story begins. Back in January of 2015, I was working with my team, starting the first iteration of SwampHacks. Super exciting. None of us had any idea what we were doing. And so my first instinct was, of course, to call for help. And I reached out to the only hackathon contact that I had at the time, and that was Diva. She had directed HackFSU the previous year, and I reached out to her and I said, I need Florida State University to help. And so she put me in contact with Matt and Christian, who was up here a little while ago, because they were the directors of that year's HackFSU. And so immediately I got in contact with Matt and Christian. They invited me to a Google Hangout, and suddenly this flurry of advice and knowledge that I didn't have access to before was sort of presented to me. And that was really, really powerful for me as a fledgling hackathon organizer, sort of suddenly having access to this great archive of knowledge. But the coolest thing about this is that it became a regular thing. We started having these hangouts every week. We would swap tips on how to organize hackathons, and other hackathon organizers within the state of Florida started joining this call, and soon we had this whole Florida hackathon organizers community, really the start of this statewide community right at our fingertips every single week.
The first time that we really traveled as a state was to MHAC 6, and we were able to get a 54-passenger bus, and not only did we fill every seat with all Florida students, but they were more passionate than ever to drive 20 hours there and back.
But probably the coolest thing about the MHAC 6 story is, I remember this, it was opening ceremonies. And the organizers were sort of giving shout outs to every school that had crossed state borders to come to MHACs. And when they got to us, they were like, and Florida State University's in the building. And of course, all the Florida State students go nuts, but everyone else from Florida was like, okay, cool, yeah. And I remember this very vividly. Matt was like, that's not okay. So after opening ceremonies, he goes up to the MHACs organizers and he's like, listen, we traveled here as a state, this is something that we did as a state. So the next time you announce our presence, just go ahead and say Florida's in the building. And that was a super powerful moment for me because it made me realize that I too could be a part of this greater Florida community. And it wasn't just, University of Florida versus Florida State trying to, beat their presence at hackathons, but it was all of us working together building this Florida presence.
And then finally, it was 2 weeks later at HackGT, a bunch of us, same people, meeting together in Klaus, and we came together and we're like, why don't we do something about this? We see each other all the time, why don't we actually make something out of this? So the story began from there.
And the coolest thing about this community is that we didn't really have to go and seek it out, right? We sort of saw a pattern of the same people going over and over to these hackathons, right? We saw the same people, trying to start up hackathons at their own universities, heading, hacking communities at universities around the state. So it really sort of formed organically and formed out of the collective passion of Florida to sort of make this community happen.
And so we knew from the very beginning that we wanted to brand it. We had this vision that we saw, that we were talked about at HackGT, that we first started to see at MHacks, but we needed to tell the community about it. We needed them to see it. And the only way we knew how to do that was to make something tangible. And that's something like a logo, a brand, but it doesn't have to be pixel perfect. It just has to be something.
So we decided to brand it. We went through multiple iterations. We went from word marks. We went to flamingos. We actually, one thing we decided to, we tried to go with the name Dolphin Hackers, and we made a secret handshake. Sadly, that didn't stay with the Florida Hackers label, but we decided to go with the beach ball. And we decided to beach ball, and it was the week before Hack Illinois. We're like, oh shoot, we're gonna be traveling to Hack Illinois. We wanna represent Florida in some way. So I went to Sticker Mule, spent all my money, and bought 100 stickers, and started handing those out on the bus, and it was incredible. It was awesome to go to Hack Illinois, and I could see all these laptops, and they had the Florida Hackers logo on it. It was finally something tangible, and it was awesome from the attendee standpoint as well, because now they had something to represent. Whenever they looked at their laptops and they saw that sticker, they're like, yeah, right here, this is what I'm representing.
And so over the course of this last spring semester, we sort of saw this thing take form, and there have been a lot of really cool effects from Florida Hackers sort of existing. One of the coolest things for me was this traveling community that sort of took shape. And of course, we gave the MHacks example, but we started seeing more out-of-state hackathons sort of offering travel reimbursements to Florida, not just individual Florida schools, but Florida as a state collective. And it let us travel out of state to these awesome hackathons and show our stuff with a lot less friction. And it wasn't just out of state where the travel benefits came in, but it was in-state as well. And so it didn't matter who wanted to start a hackathon in Florida, they were guaranteed to have a Florida Hackers presence at their event. Even if they were a new hackathon, they didn't have much traction in the community, 75, 100 Florida Hackers would show up to their event and really make it known that we are one big unit.
And we were thinking, what could we do with this? Everything that we were seeing built up over the last semester, how could we help the Florida community as a whole? We were thinking, what if we threw a Florida hackathon for everyone in Florida by hackathon organizers in Florida? What if we had these cross-university events where we would have UF come up to FSU, and it would be run by Florida hackers so that the communities could still focus on building their communities?
And so we continued. We started this collaboration between all the organizers. We created this working community. It was really awesome because we saw the attendees collaborating, but why not the organizers? So one story that's really funny is that I decided to volunteer at HackFSU instead of UF, and FSU and UF don't really have a good history of loving each other. It's a pretty strong rivalry, and so, but I decided to volunteer, and then Christian decides to come up to me during opening ceremonies. He's like, hey, do you wanna do opening ceremonies? I wasn't fully sure that he meant actually do the full 15-minute opening ceremonies by myself up there representing FSU. But I did opening ceremonies and closing ceremonies, and I volunteered the entire event. It was pretty terrible. I slept for 30 minutes, and I was dead tired by the end. I was absolutely dead tired. And one of the great things I love about this is that people would ask me, how did you organize SwampHacks and HackFSU at the same time? The truth is, I didn't organize both of them. But the thing is, the people that recognized me as SwampHacks saw that I was a UF student that was trying to help FSU. That's not a normal thing in Florida. And so that kind of thing for an attendee, I've had people come up to me and say, hey, show me the impact that this kind of event has. When I saw you up there, that really made it so that if this kid can go over that kind of rivalry, there's something more important than just a weekend of coding to this event.
And we were thinking, what do we do from here? So shortly after the semester ended, we had a retreat with a ton of Florida Hackathon organizers, rented out an Airbnb. And at this retreat, we were thinking, what do we want to put our time into? What do we want to focus on? And the thing that we think will matter the most is this conference. So a bit ago, we started organizing a conference for the fall where we intend to bring together all of the student hackathon organizers in Florida as well as the community builders, those building up their local communities. And we are super excited to see what this conference run by Florida Hackers, what impact it makes on those students in the next generation.
So this is a cool story, right? We told you all about Florida Hackers and sort of the impact that it had on our community and what it did for us, but we want you to take this as a lesson, right? Something that you can take back to your community and make sure that you throw something that's more than a hackathon. You create a space. So what are some things that you can do? For us, I think an important first step was finding the community leaders, right? Identifying who are the people in this community that we can identify as people who would like to take this one step further. It's the hackathon organizers, it's the university leaders, it's the people who are so passionate that they'll travel to every single hackathon in your state. And man, if only there was a way to get a collective community of all of these organizers together in one room. Anyways. And on top of that, setting up community channels is super, super important for building this bigger community. And when you're a smaller school and you're trying to get something started, at least our first instinct was, let's reach out to every single school that we know that might come to our event. But it's really hard to find a specific contact for every school. But when you have a dedicated communication channel that gives people access to that entire community, be it a Facebook group, a Slack team, that's a super, super powerful way to let information sort of percolate throughout that entire community. And then the biggest thing that I would probably say is share, right? A lot of us, or some of us, come from big schools and we have big established hackathons that have a ton of resources and we always have a ton of opportunities presented to us. But being able to take those opportunities for us and share them with our community is really what ends up building it into this incredibly, incredibly strong force that it is. And it's really more than just Hackathon A plus Hackathon B plus Hackathon C, but it's more than the sum of its parts, and it's building this greater community.
So yeah, finally, I want to talk about why we do this. There's a reason why we were crazy enough to travel so far to come to this one spot right here. It's not just a weekend. It's more than that. The impact that it can create can change lives. It's changed mine, and I know it's changed a couple of yours as well. I want to go back to a story about April 9th, 2016, Pseudo-Hack Stetson. It was the final hackathon of our great Florida spring season. And so some of you might be like, what is Stetson University? Well, Stetson University is a school in Central Florida near Orlando, DeLand, Florida. It's known for business and music. It's a private school. At that hackathon, they had 15 Stetson students. But in total, that hackathon had 100 people. It was a phenomenal, tangible way to see the impact that we had created this last spring season. We were able to see with so much joy this true family reunion that we had at the end. Building this kind of creative community, it doesn't limit yourself to one event. It doesn't limit yourself to one weekend. It doesn't limit yourself to one university. It doesn't limit yourself to one state. If we work together to build these creative communities, we can impact larger. We can impact more people, and you never know who you'll be able to impact. And always remember, it's more than a hackathon. Thank you very much, and we are Florida Hackers.
So, where's that footage of you guys dancing? What hackathon was that at?
That was Night Hacks. Dope hackathon. Definitely check it out.
At UCF.
Yeah, UCF.
I'm from the University of Utah, and
Sweet, what's
I
up?
just had a question about, so when everyone's participating with these hackathons, how did you guys decide where to have, I guess, a joint collaboration?
In terms of like an event?
Venue.
So far we had the, in terms of event for a venue with collaboration, we've had the organizer retreat, so we did that in Orlando, and as well as for the conference in the fall, we're planning that for Central Florida to make it so that everyone can come, because it is a pretty long state. So we are having that in mind. And then in terms of the cross-university events, I used UF and FSU as a reference because we're only 2 hours away. So for them to come over for like a night, it's not that big of a deal. But yeah, so it's definitely, when you're thinking of running these collaborative events, you definitely need to keep the travel time in mind.
Yeah, I think finding a geographic midpoint is, preferably neutral, but like a geographic midpoint, make sure everyone's travel time is minimized. It's a pathfinding problem.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey guys, my name is Winesh from Chicago,
What's up?
and I wanted to know if there was anything that you're experimenting with in Florida that other schools throughout MLH and throughout the country should try.
Oh, well, so the interesting thing about this Florida Hackers is that it has a ton of different aspects to it, where it's almost like a traveling community like we've seen at schools. It's kind of like MLH in that we really want to help those organizers either at when they're organizing a new hackathon or just keep up the quality, provide that Florida Hacker presence. And it's also this online community where we will need to be able to moderate that and make sure it's a good place for Florida Hackers to meet everyone. So that has probably been the most interesting thing about this. And so yeah, we're going to be shipping out a Medium post here soon, in the next week or so, and we'll be kind of going over some of the things we have been working on and how we've gone about logistically thinking that through.
Yeah, and another thing you can do is, so one thing I forgot to mention about Hack Stetson was it was the same weekend as BitCamp. So, sorry, we didn't go to BitCamp, but it was like about that support of the state. Like even though it was a smaller hackathon, bringing up those kind of hackathons, like that brings up that community. So it's definitely something that y'all can all do. Supporting those places that are nearby that need that support, that means everything.
Thanks.
Awesome, thank you so much.
All right,
Take that too.
Thank you.